The engine sputtered like a dying heartbeat, and I knew I was screwed. My old sedan had been coughing for weeks, but tonight, on a deserted stretch of Route 17, it gave up the ghost. I coasted to the shoulder, cursing under my breath, the dashboard lights mocking me in the twilight. I'm Elliot Harper, 28, a graphic designer who'd rather sketch logos than deal with real-world problems like this. My life in Willow Creek, a sleepy town in upstate New York, was predictable. Work, Netflix, repeat. But as I sat in my dead car, the weight of my routine felt suffocating. I needed a fix, and not just for the engine. Rusty's Auto Repair was the only shop open this late, a half-mile walk through the chilly October air. The neon sign buzzed as I pushed open the glass door, a bell jingling above. The place smelled of oil and rubber, and tools clattered somewhere in the back. A guy emerged from behind a lifted truck, wiping his hands on a rag. Javier Morales, his name tag read. He was maybe 32, all muscle and quiet confidence, with dark eyes that seemed to see right through me. His white tank top clung to his chest, streaked with grease, and I caught myself staring a little too long. Car trouble. Javier's voice was low, almost a growl, but there was a warmth to it that made my stomach flip. Yeah, it died on Route 17. Won't start. I fumbled my words, feeling like a kid caught stealing. I'm Elliot, by the way. He nodded, tossing the rag aside. Let's take a look. Keys. I handed them over, our fingers brushing for a split second. It was nothing, really, but my pulse spiked like I'd been shocked. He led me to my car, which I'd managed to push to the shop's lot with the help of a passing trucker. Javier popped the hood, his movements precise, like he was solving a puzzle he'd solved 1,000 times. I stood there, useless, watching him work under the floodlights. Alternator's shot, he said after a few minutes, straightening up. I can fix it, but it'll take a couple days. Parts aren't local. Great, I muttered, running a hand through my hair. Any chance you've got a loaner car? Javier smirked, just a flicker. Not that kind of shop, but I can give you a ride home. I should have said no. I had a Lyft app after all, but something about the way he looked at me, steady, unreadable, made me nod. Sure, thanks. His truck was a beast, a black F-150 with a cracked dashboard and a faint smell of leather and motor oil. We climbed in, and the silence between us was thick, broken only by the hum of the engine and the country station playing low. I stole glances at him, his hands gripping the wheel, knuckles scarred, a small rainbow flag sticker on his toolbox in the back catching my eye. I wanted to ask about it, but my tongue felt glued to the roof of my mouth. You're not from around here, are you? Javier said, breaking the quiet. Moved here a year ago for work, I replied. Still feels like I'm just passing through. He nodded, like he understood more than I'd said. This town's got a way of holding on to people, whether they like it or not. We pulled up to my apartment, a drab brick building on the edge of town. I hesitated, my hand on the door handle. Thanks for the ride, and for fixing my car. Javier's eyes met mine, and for a moment, I swore the air crackled. No problem, Elliot. I'll call you when it's ready. I got out, my heart pounding like I'd run a mile. As his truck rumbled away, I realized I was already counting the hours until I'd see him again. The next morning, I couldn't focus. My sketches for a client's logo looked like doodles a kid would scribble. All I could think about was Javier, his hands, his voice, that damn rainbow sticker. I'd never been good at reading people, but something about him felt like a question I desperately wanted to answer. My phone buzzed around noon. Car's part is on order, Javier said when I picked up. Might be done tomorrow. You good? Yeah, I'm fine. Elite. Just thanks for the update. There was a pause. Then he said, You sound like you need a coffee. There's a diner across from the shop. Meet me at 3. I froze. Was this a friendly gesture or something else? Sure, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. See you then. The diner was a time capsule. Red vinyl booze, a jukebox in the corner, and a smell of fried onions. Javier was already there, in a clean flannel now, sipping black coffee. He looked up as I slid into the booth, and his smile was small but real. You didn't have to do this, I said, gesturing to the coffee he'd ordered for me. Figured you could use it, he replied. You seemed rattled last night. I laughed, nervous. Cars breaking down aren't exactly my thing. He leaned back, studying me. What is your thing, Elliot? The question caught me off guard. I rambled about my job, my love for drawing, how I'd moved to Willow Creek to escape the noise of the city. He listened, really listened, his eyes never leaving mine. Then he told me about himself, how he'd grown up in Texas, moved here after a rough patch, and bought the shop to start over. He didn't mention the rainbow sticker, and I didn't ask, but the air between us felt charged, like we were circling something neither of us was ready to name. As we left the diner, the sun was setting, painting the sky in streaks of orange. You need a ride? Javier asked. I'm good, I said, though I wanted to say yes. See you tomorrow? He nodded, his gaze lingering. Tomorrow. I walked home, my mind a mess. I'd spent my life playing it safe, keeping my feelings locked away. But Javier was cracking something open inside me, and I wasn't sure I could stop it, or if I even wanted to. The next day, I woke up with Javier's face burned into my mind. His voice, rough but kind, played on a loop as I tried to focus on work. By noon, I was back at Rusty's, telling myself it was just to check on my car. The shop was busier today, with a couple of mechanics banging away at a pickup truck. Javier was under a sedan, only his legs visible, but I'd know those work boots anywhere. When he slid out and saw me, he wiped his brow with the back of his hand, leaving a smudge of grease. Didn't expect you so soon, he said, a teasing edge to his voice. Couldn't stay away. I blurted, then cringed. Smooth, Elliot. He chuckled, low and warm. Part's coming tomorrow morning. You're stuck with me till then. Tragic, I shot back, surprising myself with the flirt in my tone. His eyes flickered, like he'd caught it too. He led me to the office, a cramped room with a desk buried under invoices. Coffee, he offered, pouring himself a cup from a battered pot. Sure. I sat on the edge of the desk, trying to act casual. So, how'd you end up in Willow Creek? Javier leaned against the wall, sipping his coffee. Long story. Short version? I needed a fresh start. This place was cheap, and I like fixing things. People or cars? I asked, half joking. He smirked. Both, if they let me. The air shifted, heavier now. I wanted to ask about the rainbow sticker about him, but the words stuck in my throat. Instead, I said, You're good at this. The shop, I mean, feels alive. Thanks. He set his cup down, stepping closer. What about you? You happy designing logos? I shrugged. It pays the bills. But sometimes I feel like I'm just coloring inside the lines, you know? He nodded, his gaze softening. Yeah, I know. We stood there, inches apart, the hum of the shop fading into the background. My heart was racing, and I swore he could hear it. Then his phone buzzed, breaking the spell. Gotta take this, he said, stepping back. Stick around if you want. I did. For the next hour, I watched him work, his hands steady as he wrestled with a stubborn bolt. There was something hypnotic about it, the way he moved with purpose. I sketched him on a scrap of paper, capturing the curve of his jaw, the intensity in his eyes. When he caught me, I shoved the sketch in my pocket, my face burning. Drawing me already? He teased, walking over. Just doodling, I mumbled. Let me see. His tone was gentle but firm. I handed him the sketch, my hand shaking. He studied it, his expression unreadable, then handed it back. You're good, Elliot. Really good. The compliment hit harder than it should have. I mumbled a thanks and fled to the bathroom to splash water on my face. Staring in the mirror, I barely recognized myself, flushed alive, terrified. I'd spent years dodging feelings like this, telling myself I didn't have time for them. But Javier was making that impossible. When I came out, he was waiting. You okay? He asked, his voice softer now. Yeah, just a lot on my mind. He nodded, like he understood. Come by tomorrow. Car should be ready. I left the shop, my head spinning. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying our conversations, the way his eyes lingered, the way my chest tightened when he was close. I never felt this kind of pull before, and it scared the hell out of me. The next morning, I was back at the shop before it even opened. Javier was already there, working on my car. "You're early," he said, sliding out from under the hood. "Couldn't sleep," I admitted. He wiped his hands, studying me. "Something keeping you up?" I wanted to say. Instead, I shrugged. "Just life." He didn't push, just got back to work. I watched him, the way his muscles flexed under his shirt, the way he muttered to himself in Spanish when a bolt wouldn't budge. I wanted to know everything about him, his past, his dreams, what that rainbow sticker meant. But I was too afraid to ask. By noon, my car was ready. Javier handed me the keys, our fingers brushing again. This time, neither of us pulled away. "She's good as new," he said, but his eyes were on me, not the car. "Thanks," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "How much do I owe you?" He waved it off. "First one's on me. Just come back sometime." I nodded, my throat tight. As I drove away, I glanced in the rearview mirror. Javier was standing in the lot, watching me go, and I knew I was already too far gone to turn back. Driving home, my car purred like it hadn't in years, but my mind was louder. Javier's face, his voice, that fleeting touch of his hand, they haunted me. I'd spent my life avoiding complications, but this felt like one I couldn't outrun. The next few days were torture. I buried myself in work, sketching logos until my hands cramped, but every line turned into the curve of Javier's jaw or the angle of his shoulders. I told myself it was nothing, just a crush, but the ache in my chest said otherwise. I'd never been open about my feelings. Not with friends, not with family, and definitely not with myself. Growing up in a small town like Willow Creek, you learn to keep certain things quiet. But Javier was making silence impossible. On Friday, I caved. I drove back to Rusty's, telling myself it was to thank him again. The shop was quiet, just Javier and an older mechanic tinkering with a motorcycle. He looked up as I walked in, his face breaking into a grin that made my knees weak. "Car acting up already?" he asked, wiping his hands. "No, it's perfect," I said. "I just wanted to say thanks. Properly." His eyes narrowed, like he was trying to read me. "You hungry?" There's a taco truck down the street. I nodded too quickly. We walked to the truck, the air crisp with fall. The conversation flowed. Movies, music, the absurdity of Willow Creek's annual pumpkin festival. He laughed when I admitted I'd never tried birria tacos, and he ordered for me, his Spanish rolling off his tongue like music. We sat on a nearby bench, the food warm in our hands, and for the first time in years, I felt easy. "You don't talk much about yourself," Javier said, licking sauce off his thumb. "Why's that?" I froze, the taco halfway to my mouth. "Not much to tell," I lied. He raised an eyebrow. "Bullshit. You're an artist. You got stories." I laughed, nervous. "Maybe I'm just boring." "You're not boring, Elliot." His voice was low, serious. "You're careful." The word hit like a dart. I looked away, focusing on the neon lights of the taco truck. "Maybe I have to be," I said finally. He didn't push, just nodded. "I get it. I was careful too for a long time." There was the opening I'd been too scared to ask for. I took a breath. "That rainbow sticker on your toolbox, what's the story?" He leaned back, his expression softening. "I put it there when I bought the shop. A reminder to be myself, no matter what this town thinks. EMB. Took me years to say that out loud. My heart thudded. Does the town give you shit for it? Some do." He shrugged. "But I'm done hiding. Life's too short." I wanted to tell him then about the feelings I'd buried, the years I'd spent pretending I was too busy for love, too busy to figure out who I was. But the words wouldn't come. Instead, I said, "I admire that." He looked at me, his gaze steady. "You'll get there, Elliot, when you're ready." We finished eating in silence, but it wasn't awkward. It was like we'd said everything that mattered without saying it at all. As we walked back to the shop, our shoulders brushed, and I didn't pull away. That night, I sketched him again, this time from memory. The The lines came easier, bolder, like I was finally letting myself see him. See me. But the fear was still there, clawing at the edges. What if I let myself feel this? And it all fell apart. The next day, I got a text from Javier. Got a job for you if you're up for it. Come by the shop. I was there in 20 minutes. He was waiting in the office, a grin on his face. I need a new logo for the shop. Something fresh. You in? I blinked. You're serious? Dead serious. Your sketches are killer. I want one on my sign. I spent the afternoon sketching ideas, Javier leaning over my shoulder, pointing out what he liked. His presence was distracting, but in the best way. By evening, we had a rough design, a sleek wrench crossed with a gear, bold but simple. He loved it. You're sticking around for a beer to celebrate, right? He asked as we cleaned up. I hesitated. I shouldn't. Got work tomorrow. One beer, he said, his eyes locking on mine. Small, Elliot. I stayed. We sat in the shop after hours, the other mechanics gone, just us and a couple of cold bottles. The conversation turned personal. His ex in Texas, my lonely years in the city. I told him about my parents, how they'd never understand someone like me. He told me about his sister, the only one who stood by him when he came out. You're not alone, you know, he said, his voice soft. Not anymore. I looked at him, and something snapped inside me. I wanted to kiss him, to close the distance between us, but fear held me back. Instead, I clinked my bottle against his. To not being alone, I said. He smiled, and I knew I was falling. The logo project became my excuse to keep coming back to Rusty's. Every day after work, I'd show up with new sketches, and Javier would make time to look them over, even when the shop was slammed. It wasn't just about the logo anymore. It was about us, the hours we spent talking, laughing, stealing glances. I was falling harder, and it terrified me. One evening, as we worked late in the office, Javier leaned over my sketch pad, his arm brushing mine. This one's it, he said, tapping a design with a stylized wrench and flame. It's perfect. I grinned, my face warm. You're just saying that. Nah, I mean it. He looked at me, his eyes dark and intense. You're good at this, Elliot. You should be proud. I mumbled a thanks, my heart racing. He was so close, the heat of him making it hard to think. I wanted to say something, anything, to keep him there, but my phone buzzed. A text from my mom. When are you visiting? We miss you. Guilt twisted in my gut. I hadn't told her about Javier, about any of this. How could I? You okay? Javier asked, noticing my shift. Yeah, just family stuff. I shoved my phone away. They don't know about me. He nodded, like he'd been there. Took me years to tell my sister. Felt like I was carrying a bomb. How'd you do it? I asked, my voice barely steady. He leaned back, his hands in his pockets. I just said it. I'm bi, and I'm done pretending. She cried, hugged me, said she'd always known. Not everyone's that lucky, but you don't know till you try. I swallowed hard, the weight of his words sinking in. I'm not ready. You will be, he said, his voice soft but sure. And when you are, I'll be here. The moment stretched, heavy with possibility. I wanted to reach for him, to let go of the fear, but I couldn't. Not yet. Instead, I grabbed my sketch pad. Let's finish this logo. He smiled, letting me off the hook. We worked until midnight, the shop quiet except for the hum of the radio. When we finally called it a night, he walked me to my car. You're coming back tomorrow, right? He asked. Try and stop me, I said, and his laugh followed me all the way home. The next day, things got complicated. I was at the shop tweaking the logo when a guy walked in, tall, blonde, all charm and confidence. Javier around? He asked, leaning on the counter. He's in the back, I said, sizing him up. You need something? Just dropping by. He grinned, too smooth. I'm Nate, Javier's friend. The word hit like a punch. Friend? Ex? Something more? My stomach churned as Javier came out, his face lighting up when he saw Nate. They hugged, and I felt like an idiot for thinking Javier was into me. I busied myself with my sketches, tried to ignore the way they laughed, the easy way Nate touched Javier's arm. When Nate left, Javier came over. You good? You look like you saw a ghost. Who's Nate? I asked, hating how jealous I sounded. Javier's smile faded. Old friend from Texas. He's in town for a couple days. Friend, I repeated, my voice flat. Javier's eyes softened. Elliot, it's not like that. Nate's history. Complicated history, but history. I nodded, but doubt gnawed at me. That night, I barely slept, my mind spinning with images of Javier and Nate, of everything I wanted but was too scared to claim. I'd spent so long hiding, and now that I was finally feeling something real, it felt like it was slipping away. The next morning, I dragged myself to the shop. Javier was alone, working on a motorcycle. You didn't text back last night, he said, not looking up. Didn't know what to say, I admitted. He set his wrench down, walking over. Elliot, I'm not good at games. If you got something to say, just say it. I took a breath, my heart pounding. I like you, Javier. A lot. And seeing you with Nate, it messed me up. His eyes widened, then softened. Elliot, I like you too. Nate's my past. You're something else. Before I could respond, he stepped closer, his hand brushing my cheek. My breath caught, and for a moment, the world was just us. Then he kissed me, soft, tentative, like he was giving me a chance to pull away. I didn't. I kissed him back, my hands finding his shoulders, the taste of him like oil and salt, and everything I'd been missing. When we pulled apart, I was shaking. I've never done this, I whispered. Me neither, he said, his forehead against mine. Not like this. That kiss changed everything. It was like a dam breaking, all my fear and want crashing together. Javier's hands were still on me, steady and warm, grounding me in a moment I'd spent years avoiding. We stood in the shop, the smell of oil and metal around us, the radio playing some old rock ballad. You okay? Javier asked, his voice low. No, I said, laughing shakily. But I want to be. He smiled, brushing a thumb across my jaw. We'll figure it out. But figuring it out wasn't easy. The next day, I woke up buzzing with energy, but also dread. What did this mean? Was I ready to be open, to face the world as someone who loved a man? Willow Creek wasn't exactly a bastion of progress, and my parents' voices echoed in my head, their disapproval a shadow I couldn't shake. At the shop, Javier was different, still warm, but careful, like he was giving me space. We worked on the logo, but the air was thick with unspoken questions. You're quiet today, he said finally, setting down a wrench. Just processing, I said. This is new for me. He nodded. I know. It's okay to be scared. But I wasn't just scared. I was terrified of losing him, of losing myself, of what it meant to step into this new version of me. That night, I called my best friend, Lila, who lived in Brooklyn. I hadn't told her much about my life lately, but I needed to talk. Elliot, you sound like you're freaking out, she said, her voice crackling through the phone. I kissed a guy, I blurted, and I can't stop thinking about him. There was a pause, then she laughed. About damn time. Who is he? I told her about Javier, the shop, the kiss. She listened, then said, You deserve this, Elliot. Don't let fear screw it up. Her words stuck with me, but so did the fear. The next day, Nate showed up at the shop again. He was all smiles, but I saw the way his eyes lingered on Javier, the way he stood too close. You two are cute, he said, nodding at me. Didn't know you were into artists' hobby. Knock it off, Nate, Javier said, his tone sharp. Nate raised his hands, grinning. Just saying, you always had a type. I wanted to disappear. Javier walked Nate out, their voices low and tense. When he came back, he looked frustrated. Sorry about him. He's a lot. Ix. I asked, my voice tight. Yeah, Javier admitted. We were together in Texas. Ended badly. He's just passing through, stirring shit up. I nodded, but the doubt was back, sharper now. Was that just a rebound? A fling? I left the shop early, muttering about work, but really I needed air. That night, Javier texted, Can we talk? I didn't reply. Instead, I drove to the edge of town, parked by a field, and stared at the stars. I wanted him more than I'd ever wanted anyone, but the thought of getting hurt, of being seen, judged, rejected, felt like too much. The next day, I avoided the shop. Javier called, but I let it go to voicemail. His voice was calm, but I could hear the worry. Elliot, I don't know what's going on, but I'm here. Just talk to me. I couldn't. Not yet. I spent the day sketching, filling pages with Javier's face, each one angrier than the last. By evening, I was a mess, torn between running to him and running away. Then my mom called. We're coming to visit next weekend, she said. Your dad wants to see your new place. Panic gripped me. How could I explain Javier? How could I explain myself? I mumbled something about work and hung up, my hands shaking. I needed to see him to know this was real. I drove to the shop. It was late, the lot empty except for Javier's truck. He was inside, cleaning tools, the radio off for once. He looked up surprised. Elliot, I'm sorry, I said, the words spilling out. I'm freaking out. My parents, Nate, all of it. I don't know how to do this. He crossed the room, stopping just short of me. You don't have to have it all figured out. I'm in this with you. I kissed him then, harder than before, desperate to hold on to something real. He kissed me back, his hands in my hair, and for a moment, the world made sense. Kissing Javier felt like coming home, but it also felt like stepping off a cliff. We pulled apart, breathless, and he rested his forehead against mine. We're going to be okay. Elliot, he whispered. I wanted to believe him. The next few days were a blur of stolen moments. We'd work on the logo, then sneak kisses in the office when the other mechanics weren't looking. Every touch was electric, every glance a promise. But my parents' visit loomed like a storm cloud. I hadn't told Javier about it, and the guilt was eating me alive. On Wednesday, we went to the diner again. Javier was telling me about his sister's wedding, how he'd been her man of honor, when I blurted, my parents are coming this weekend. He paused, his fork halfway to his mouth. Okay, that's big. You gonna tell them? I don't know, I admitted. They're old school, Catholic. They think I'm just busy. He reached across the table, his hand covering mine. You don't have to tell them anything you're not ready for. But you don't have to hide, either. I wanted to be as brave as he was, but the thought of my dad's disappointed stare or my mom's tears made me feel small. What if they hate me? I whispered. They won't, Javier said firmly. And if they do, you've got me. His words carried me through the week, but by Friday, I was a wreck. My parents arrived that evening, their rental car, pulling into my apartment complex. Mom hugged me, her perfume sharp and familiar, while Dad clapped me on the shoulder, his smile tight. Place looks nice, he said, eyeing my small living room. You doing okay out here? Yeah, elite. Work's good. Dinner was tense. They asked about my job, my friends, if I was dating. I dodged, talking about clients and the weather, but Mom's eyes were sharp. You seem distracted, Elliot, she said. Everything okay? Just tired, I said, forcing a smile. That night, I texted Javier, I can't do this. He called immediately. What's going on, he asked, his voice steady. They're here, and I'm freaking out, I said. I want to tell them, but what if it ruins everything? Elliot, listen to me, he said. You're enough, just as you are. If they can't see that, it's their loss. But you'll never know unless you try. I hung up, my heart pounding. The next morning, I took my parents to the diner, hoping neutral ground would help. They loved the pancakes, but the conversation stayed surface level. Weather, sports, my childhood. I kept picturing Javier, his hand on mine, his voice telling me I was enough. Then Nate walked in. Of all the damn times. He spotted me and sauntered over, all charm. Elliot, right? Where's Javi? My parents looked confused. Who's Javi? Dad asked. Friend of mine, I said quickly, my face burning. Nate smirked, like he knew he was stirring trouble, and left after a quick chat. But the damage was done. Mom's eyes were on me, searching. Elliot, she said softly, is there something you want to tell us? I froze, my fork clattering to the plate. Javier's words echoed in my head. You're enough. I took a breath, my hands shaking. Yeah, there is. I'm gay. and I'm seeing someone. His name's Javier. The silence was deafening. Dad's face hardened, and Mom's eyes filled with tears. Elliot, she whispered, why didn't you tell us? I was scared, I said, my voice breaking. I didn't want to lose you. Dad stood, his chair scraping. I need some air, he said, and walked out. Mom reached for my hand, but I pulled away, my chest tight. I drove them back to my apartment, the silence suffocating. That night, Dad barely looked at me. Mom tried to talk, but I couldn't handle it. I left, saying I had work, and drove to the shop. Javier was closing up, the lot dark except for the neon sign. He took one look at my face and pulled me into a hug. I told them, I said, my voice muffled against his shoulder. It was awful. I'm so proud of you, he said, holding me tighter. You're braver than you know. I cried then, for the first time in years, and he didn't let go. Javier's arms were the only thing keeping me together. I'd ripped my life open, and the pieces were still falling. But with him, I felt like I could breathe, even if just for a moment. The next morning, I woke up on his couch, a blanket tucked around me. He'd insisted I stay at his place, a small apartment above the shop, after I'd shown up a mess. He was in the kitchen, making coffee, his hair still mussed from sleep. Morning, he said, handing me a mug. You okay? Not really, I admitted, but I'm glad I'm here. He sat beside me, close but not crowding. What happened with your parents? I told him everything. The diner, Nate's interruption, my dad's silence. He listened, his hand resting on my knee, steadying me. They need time, he said. Doesn't mean they don't love you. I wanted to believe him, but the hurt was raw. Still, being with him gave me a spark of hope. We spent the day together, not at the shop, but at a nearby lake, skipping stones and talking about nothing and everything. He told me about his dreams of expanding the shop, maybe opening a second one. I told him about the graphic novel I'd always wanted to draw, but never had the guts to start. You should do it, he said, his eyes bright. You've got the talent. Don't let fear stop you. It was the same advice he'd given me about coming out, and it hit just as hard. That evening, we kissed by the lake, the water reflecting the sunset, and I felt like I was finally living for myself. My parents left the next day. Mom hugged me, her eyes red. We love you, Elliot, she said. We just need time. Dad nodded, his jaw tight, but he didn't speak. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. Over the next few weeks, Javier and I grew closer. We finished the logo, and he had it painted on the shop sign, bold and bright. I started working on my graphic novel, sketching late into the night, inspired by him, by us. He'd read my drafts, his feedback honest but kind, and I'd watch him work on cars, marveling at how he made broken things whole again. One night, as we lay in his bed, the shop quiet below us, he traced circles on my back. You ever think about the future? He asked. All the time, I said. Yeah. He hesitated, then said, I see you in it. My heart stopped, then started again, faster. Me too, I whispered. We weren't perfect. I still had days where doubt crept in, where I worried about my parents or what the town thought. Javier had his own ghosts. Nate texted once, stirring up old wounds, but Javier shut it down, choosing me. We fought sometimes about stupid things like whose turn it was to buy coffee, but we always came back to each other. Months later, I stood in the shop, watching Javier unveil the new sign with my logo. The other mechanics cheered, and Javier pulled me into a hug, not caring who saw. You did this, he said, his voice proud. We did this, I corrected, and he kissed me right there in the lot, under the neon glow. I'd taken my car to the shop, expecting a quick fix. Instead, I found Javier, and he fixed something in me I didn't know was broken. I'd spent years hiding, afraid of who I was, but with him, I was finally free. And as we stood together, the future felt wide open, full of possibility, full of us.